Hey guys, today we're going to service our cooling system and we're going to change out the thermostat. Make sure before you start the job that the engine is very cold because cooling gets extremely hot at operating temperature. Make sure to secure the vehicle properly with jack stands. I've also placed the jack underneath the vehicle for extra support. And secure the wheels. To make life easier and so you can see more, we'll remove the intake tube and the accessory drive belt. Those of you who are fortunate enough to own a 2004 and earlier model of these trucks, you will look for the drain or the petcock valve on the driver's side of the radiator somewhere around this vicinity. My truck does not have that, so we have to release the lower rad hose to drain the fluid out. These self-tension clamps are a pain in the butt. I am using some channel locks, and you have to have a lot of grip strength, not a ton, but enough, and patience to virtually move it over. This thing is so old and beat up. I have a new one. If this does not come off easily, we're going to cut it with a knife because we're just going to replace it anyways. If you're not replacing it, do not cut it with a knife. Getting pretty lucky here. It's coming off my hand. We have our drain underneath because we got to catch all this fluid. So this is the long way to do it, but you can pretty much siphon it out, kind of. Like, I'm just, I'll press the upper rad hose, and then it'll kind of like, some of it will come out. I'd rather try to drain a bunch of it this way instead of making a huge mess underneath. It's a little bit hard to catch on the other side, it looks like, and it's hard to get at that clamp. So a lot of it's coming out right now, so I'm just going to keep draining it this way as much as I can, and then we'll take off the other portion off the radiator. Remember guys, to be as responsible as you can, and any fluid that you're draining out of your vehicle, make sure to catch it and dispose of it at the proper authorities. Once you have almost all the fluid out, you just go ahead and take a 10mm to both of these bolts, and the housing and the thermostat will come out. Don't impact this out. You should be easily able to take this out by hand. So you have the parts taken out now. This particular truck, the thermostat is separate from the housing. Depending on the vehicle that you have, some of them, the thermostat might be part of the housing, so you have to verify with the dealership or your parts store. So we've taken out, this one has failed partially open because it is always keeping the truck relatively cool, which is what I'd rather see. If it were to fail, I'd rather fail like that as opposed to being closed and then I have overheating issues. So this is our new piece that we got from the dealership, and it's actually pretty cool. It's actually made in Japan. We all know that they're about quality, so I'm happy to put this piece in. We have a new gasket and everything. So we're going to clean the housing and put this together, and we can put this back in. When you're putting on the new gasket, keep in mind that it goes up and over, and it seals this whole part. So don't put the gasket in and then put the thermostat in. It goes on top of the thermostat, and then it goes into the housing. And you can see there's a little notch over here. There's also a notch on the gasket as well to help you line it up. We're also going to make sure that we clean off the mating surface here of any contaminants or the old gasket. Alright, our thermostat is ready to go back in. So when you guys are installing a thermostat, you want to keep pay attention to the jingle pin over here. So this guy helps bleed any air in the system, and most cases it's going to tell you to put it in the upper part or north or 12 o'clock. Now when I was reading a bunch of the Toyota guys, for some reason Toyota notoriously comes up with the position and it's being argued that it should be in the 6 o'clock. Now there's nothing on the LS motor that I can find that states otherwise. This is how it was installed before. And this thermostat has been in the truck for about, I think, 3 or 4 years, and I had no issues. So I'm going to copy the orientation of how it was installed before at the 12 o'clock or north position. For those of you that are not sure or where to put it, however it was in the vehicle before, just copy that. Here's a different view. So the way that this housing goes in, these bolts aren't parallel with the ground. So I had to line it up, kind of loosely fit it, see where it goes in, which is the uppermost point, and then just rotate it. That notch is good for the gasket, but it seems that the gasket doesn't have the ability to hold the thermostat in, so it's not a great guide. So just make sure that you know where that guy is. So as I'm tightening, so you might realize when you first install it that it doesn't go in flush. That's because the seal is brand new. So as we're tightening it, we're going gradually top and bottom and making sure that we go on evenly. So I didn't tighten the bottom all the way and then the top. I'm alternating between the two to get a good seal on that new gasket. Some of you might be wondering, why did I put a stock thermostat in? Well, a stock thermostat is roughly about, I think it's 186 degrees Fahrenheit is when it activates. Performance ones are 108 degrees and then as low as 160. On a newer vehicle like this, there are so many parameters that it uses to run properly. So if you put a really cold thermostat in here, you might put the vehicle into a particular loop where it's trying to warm itself up and starts dumping fuel when it doesn't need to. So on these modern vehicles, just put the stock stuff in. While we're doing this job and we've taken out a lot of the fluid, we might as well change out the temperature sensor. So there is a sensor over here. See this battery junction point and where the power steering is? The sensor is right over here. So we just go ahead and pull this clip back, pull it out, and then we just take a 3/4 inch deep socket and then we can take it out of the engine. I like using these spark plug wrenches for situations like this. So there's the old one. Here's our new one. It does have thread sealant on it, so I just put a little bit on the top over here just to make sure. You see the crush washer is fresh. This one doesn't look bad at all, but we might as well just change it because it is a cheap component and our readings might be off because of the sensor. It's mostly because of the thermostat, but you never know, so we'll just go ahead and change this out. And we've also packed the inside of it with dielectric grease to make sure that we have a good electrical connection. And then mainly because I don't want it to corrode over time. It doesn't really make it work any better. We're just sealing out the elements. The lower hose is much easier access from this area, so if you just release the splash shield over here, you can see it better and have a lot more room. Here is our new lower rad hose, and here's the old one. Now we're going to reuse the self-tensioning clamps. They are a pain in the butt to work with, but I like the idea is I don't really have to think about them because they're always going to be tight. Now, taking them off the old hose was pretty difficult, and putting on the new one, it was easier because the old hose actually started to expand and bulge over time. It's a little bit softer than the new one. So since we're doing all this and we're making all the effort, we might as well just go ahead and change this out because it's cheap, and then it gives us peace of mind in these hot summer months. Okay, let's go ahead and put the new one in. It's nice to work with new hoses. You want the up one. There, just gotta put the clamps on it. Okay, the easiest way to reinstall these clamps is you have to latch this part on here so it opens itself up. And then you can work it on by hand. I have some silicone lube on there. And you go, there you go. Work it over the bulge, open it up again, and then let it clamp itself. It is a pain in the butt. I'm sure the GM techs have a tool specifically for this, but you can do it. And to unlock it, I couldn't film it, guys, but what you do is you look how it's latched on there. And I took a flathead and I twisted it for it to separate, and then it just clamps right on. That's not going anywhere. Okay, we got all our hoses back on. What we're gonna do is we're going to hose everything off because coolant's a little bit corrosive, so we want to rinse everything off. And I'm gonna go ahead and put the belt and the intake tube back on. You guys have seen me put the serpentine belt on before, so you can refer to my previous video. We are now going to fill it back up. We're going to use a 50-50 mix of Dex Cool and distilled water. This is their concentrate version. You can save a lot of money if you mix it yourself. You can get this pre-mixed, but it's significantly more money. Also, we are using Dex Cool. That's what the truck came with. That's what we always used. We change it out every 2 years. So be mindful of the vehicle that you're working on and what it takes, and just use whatever the manufacturer specifies. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to fill up the reservoir all the way. This is a pressurized system, so there's no rad cap on the radiator itself, so you have to do everything from the overflow. Following our Haynes manual, it's saying to start the vehicle, let it idle for a minute, and then put on the cap onto the overflow. But we're not going to cinch it down all the way because we're going to let pressure escape. So we're just going to go ahead and start it right now. We're going to count down a minute. You also make sure that it's on hot, and we're going to turn on the fan. See, it's sucking up the water right now. It's coming back up, so you can see that there's air in the system. So the vehicle stops sucking in the fluid, so we're going to put this back on, not tight, just so that it can burp itself basically, and we're going to let it warm up. To speed up the process, you can rev the motor up to 3,000 RPM. I'm just going to keep the RPMs low. We're going to rev it up a little bit later and see if the levels change. And to do this, we're just filling up at the cold mark right now. Now, when we are holding the revs up, we're not doing it consistently. Like, we're doing this in 30-second intervals and then letting it idle back down. I admit this is a little bit hard on the engine idling for so long, but it's what we have to do. Okay, we're going to top it off one last time, and before we do so, we're going to release this. If there's any hissing noise, we want to let it air out and then wait for it to stop, and then we take this off. So we topped it off some more, and it took some more fluid. You can see that it's still purging itself. Cooling fans have engaged, and we're maintaining a good operating temperature at idle, so we're looking good there. The system's still purging itself a bit, so we're going to let it idle some more, and then we'll top it off as necessary, and then we go ahead for a test drive. Older style systems, you can squeeze the upper radiator hose to help get the air out. There's another suggestion they make is to unbolt the whole reservoir and kind of tilt it. I'm not going to do that, but if you're really concerned or if you're having issues burping the system, you can do that as well. Some of you that are watching this video might realize that I did not do a flush. The reason why is about a month ago we actually changed out the rad fluid, so I didn't see it necessary to flush the whole system, so we actually left a bunch of it in there that was in the heater core and everything, and we were just topping off our level. So if you are looking for a coolant flush video, you'll have to search in the description below. Now you guys might notice that this housing looks a lot shinier, so all I did was I took a brush on a drill and I just scuffed it up pretty good. And to keep it looking like that, because it is bare aluminum, it will oxidize over time, I just hit it with some clear coat. So hopefully it kind of stays like that over the years until we have to change this out again. It's a piece that you don't really see. It's a daily driver. It's not a show vehicle. So just putting a metal brush like this on a drill and we just quickly polish it. It is pretty abrasive, so it will leave some scuffs. If you're trying to make it perfect, then you'll want to sand it and then polish it after and then put on a buffing wheel. That's for a vehicle that you're going to bring to shows or something. If you're just trying to make your daily and you're just taking pride in it, doing this will be fine. Just hitting with a clear coat will help protect it over time. And remember guys, use distilled water. Don't use drinking water like this premium glacier water. The distilled water, all the minerals are removed because we don't want to run that through the engine and have it react with anything and build up deposits or whatever. So this is good for drinking, this is good for your vehicle. Now, I'm saying this because I don't know where you guys live. So places with soft water, you're probably okay to use just stuff from the garden hose, but places with hard water, it's not going to be great for the engine. So to be safe, I'm just recommending you guys use distilled water, mix it 50-50 with your coolant. Okay, we finished our job. We've confirmed that there's no leaks. We've cycled the engine several times because we take the time because we're doing it ourselves, but we're going to take this one step further. I know no mechanic shop's going to do this because of a time constraint, but we want to make sure that we don't have this fluid just sticking to the vehicle. It can be corrosive on certain finishes, and we can cause premature corrosion on certain areas. So all we have to do is something easy, especially if you got this on the paint by accident. If you get this stuff on the paint, wash it off right away. We only got it underneath the vehicle. So since we're underneath, we're going to take our time, and we're just going to rinse it off. Now I got a bunch on the pulley over here for the air, for the compressor for the air conditioning, and I got a bunch on the frame, so I'm just rinsing it off. You don't have to do this, but I will on my vehicle. So after you guys have done all the processes of running the engine, turning it off, checking the levels, go ahead and drive the vehicle for roughly about 10 minutes, light driving, under load. That way you are cycling the cooling system and making everything work the way it's supposed to while driving. Then come back and double check your fluid levels. There's a very good chance that's going to go down a little bit and you might have to top it off again. Well, there you guys have it. A pretty simple install for changing out a part that is pretty necessary for proper operation and to get the most life out of your vehicle. Now, I will admit this vehicle is very easy to service. It's one of the top reasons why I purchased it. So this will vary depending on the vehicle that you own, but the process is going to be very similar on how you're going to change out the thermostat, things to look out for. Obviously, we're going to make sure that the engine's very cold when we do the job. So it's best to just do it when you just wake up and then start in the morning. Don't drive around and then try to do a job because you'll have to wait a few hours. But yeah, it's pretty much it, guys. So everything's looking really good. And now we just put this thing back on the ground. If you like today's content, make sure to check out my channel and hit the subscribe button and make sure to hit that bell notification. What that does is it makes sure that you're always kept up to date with all the content that we're providing with you guys on YouTube. So the way that we have the channel set up is I have the uploads up top. That way at all times you can always see, if you just hop by the channel, what our latest upload is. Plus with the bell notification, you're going to get some sort of message from YouTube itself. We also have popular uploads, car videos, how-to videos, demonstration and informational videos, and a lot of cool other specific car videos like our builds playlist. I really like the builds playlist because it takes all the theories from our how-to section and it keeps applying it to different vehicles. Yeah.